Well, that's another fine mess you've gotten us into, I muttered, watching the spectacular light show of exploding Nexar warships through the observatory dome of my diplomatic vessel. The human expression felt oddly appropriate for the situation. After all, who would have thought that the most catastrophic miscalculation in galactic history would begin with something as simple as underestimating the value of friendship? Oh, pardon me, I should introduce myself. I'm Ambassador Krolvex, Senior Diplomatic Observer for the Galactic Council, and I'm currently watching the systematic destruction of what was supposed to be an unstoppable armada. The Nexar Empire really should have known better, but then again, we all should have. Ambassador, the human fleet is requesting permission to dock, my aide, Trill, announced with a nervous tremor in her voice. They're being accompanied by them. I didn't need to ask who them was. The soft bioluminescent glow emanating from the ships flanking the human vessels was unmistakable. The Lumini, the galaxy's most peaceful species, had just helped humanity obliterate a hostile force 3 times their combined size. Permission granted, I said, trying to keep my own voice steady. And Trill, prepare the good refreshments, the ones we save for victory celebrations. But, sir, protocol states that after a conflict— Trill, we just watched a species known for interpretive light dance and philosophical poetry help turn the most advanced battle fleet in the quadrant into space confetti. I think we can bend protocol just this once. Through the dome, I could see the human ships moving into position. Their vessels were a fascinating mix of practical engineering and artistic flair, much like the species themselves. They weren't the most advanced ships in the galaxy, but they had something better: adaptability. And now they had friends. The Lumini ships were something else entirely, organic-looking vessels that pulsed with internal light, like giant deep-space jellyfish. If you told me yesterday that those same peaceful vessels carried weapons capable of splitting a Nexar dreadnought in half, I'd have laughed you out of the sector. I guess that's the problem with being a professional observer. Sometimes you miss what's right in front of your face. Ambassador, Trill called out again. Commander Chen and High Illuminator Astra are ready to board. Excellent, I replied, straightening my ceremonial robes. Time to face the music, as our human friends would say. As I watched the docking procedure begin, I couldn't help but chuckle at the absurdity of it all. The Nexar Empire had thought they could bully their way across the galaxy. They saw humanity's relative technological inferiority as weakness. They dismissed the Lumini as irrelevant philosophers. Now, looking at the debris field that used to be their pride and joy, I had to wonder, who were the real philosophers here? The ones who preached peace through strength, or the ones who understood that true strength often comes wrapped in unexpected packages? Sir? Trill interrupted my musings. You're smiling. Am I? Well, I suppose I am. It's not every day you get to witness the beginning of a new era in galactic politics, especially not one that starts with someone making the grave mistake of threatening a peaceful species' best friend. The docking clamps engaged with a satisfying thunk. Time to go welcome our victorious guests, and perhaps learn a few lessons about assumptions, friendship, and the true meaning of peace. 3 months earlier. You want to what? I nearly choked on my morning stimulant as I read the official request again. The Lumini, masters of meditation and stellar poetry, wanted to form a military alliance with humans, the same humans who still broadcast reality entertainment shows about people falling into colourful obstacle courses. The request is genuine, Ambassador Vex, Trill confirmed, her antennae twitching with amusement. High Illuminator Astra was quite insistent about it. I set down my drink before I could spill it. The Lumini were legendary across the galaxy, but not for their military prowess. No, these were the beings who turned their entire home system into a light-based art installation visible from 12 parsecs away. They hosted meditation retreats that had a 1,000-year waiting list. Their diplomatic gifts were crystals that sang ancient ballads about cosmic harmony. Get me Blake Washington on the comm, I ordered, rubbing my temples. The human ambassador was relatively new to his position, but he had a refreshing way of cutting through diplomatic nonsense, Plus, he made excellent jokes about bureaucracy. The holoscreen flickered to life, revealing Washington's familiar face. He was grinning like someone who'd just won a cosmic lottery. "Morning, Kroll. I'm guessing this is about our new best friends." "Best? Blake, what did you do? The Lumini haven't formed an alliance with anyone in their 10,000-year recorded history. They send meditation instructors to war zones." Blake's grin widened. "Would you believe it started with pizza?" "With what?" "Pizza. You know, that circular food I brought to last month's diplomatic dinner. The one you said, and I quote, tastes like a religious experience." I groaned. "You're telling me the most enlightened species in the galaxy wants to form a military alliance because of flatbread with toppings?" "Not exactly," Blake chuckled. "But it did get us talking. See, the Lumini were fascinated by how humans can be so contradictory. We make weapons of mass destruction and write poetry about flowers. We build warships and fill them with art galleries. We invented nuclear fusion and use it to power ice cream machines. That doesn't explain—" "Let me finish," Blake interrupted, holding up a hand. "Last week, High Illuminator Astra attended a human children's birthday party. Know what happened? The kids taught them how to play tag. The Lumini spent 6 hours running around, laughing, glowing in different colors. They said it was the most profound spiritual experience they'd had in centuries." I blinked slowly. "Tag? The ancient art of touching someone and running away?" "Exactly. The Lumini realized something we've known all along. There's beauty in chaos, wisdom in play, and strength in seeming weakness. They chose us because we understand that peace isn't just the absence of conflict. Sometimes it's about having the strength to be silly." The holoscreen chimed, indicating another incoming call. It was a Lumini transmission, their characteristic shimmer making the image sparkle. "Ambassador Vex." High Illuminator Astra's melodic voice filled my office. Their bioluminescent form pulsed with gentle blues and greens. "I trust Ambassador Washington has explained our position." "He mentioned something about pizza and tag," I replied diplomatically. Astra's light patterns shifted to what I recognized as their version of laughter. "Ah, yes, delightful innovations. But there's more. We've watched humanity for decades. They paint their warships with children's artwork. Their soldiers carry musical instruments into battle. They name their most powerful weapons after their mothers and lovers. They understand something fundamental about the universe that most species forget." "And what's that?" I asked, genuinely curious now. "That true peace comes not from denying the darkness within, but from channeling it wisely. Humans embrace their contradictions. Like us, they choose peace not because they're weak, but because they're strong enough to be gentle." I looked at Blake, who was trying not to look too smug. "And the military alliance is both practical and symbolic," Astra continued. "The galaxy is changing, Ambassador Vex. Some forces refuse to understand the power of choice. They mistake our serenity for weakness, our humanity's playfulness for foolishness. Perhaps it's time they learned otherwise." As I processed this, Trill handed me another report. The Nexar Empire was expanding again, their ships pushing closer to both human and Lumini space. They were about to learn a very important lesson about judging books by their covers, or in this case, judging species by their pizza parties. "Well then," I said, raising my now cold stimulant in a toast, "to the most improbable alliance in galactic history. May your enemies never see you coming, and may they at least appreciate the artistic value of their defeat." Both Blake and Astra laughed. The galaxy was about to get very interesting indeed. The Nexar Empire made their move on a Tuesday. Funny how the worst days always seem to happen on Tuesdays. I was in the middle of filing my weekly report. Humans and Lumini continue baffling galaxy with friendship bracelets and joint meditation sessions, when every alarm in my diplomatic vessel started screaming. The holoscreens lit up with emergency broadcasts, showing Nexar warships dropping out of hyperspace around the Lumini homeworld. "Those absolute fools," I whispered, watching the massive dreadnoughts position themselves in attack formation. The Nexar had apparently mistaken the Lumini's latest stellar light festival for a sign of weakness. A classic case of bringing a battleship to a poetry reading. Or so they thought. "Sir!" Trill burst into my office, her usual composure shattered. "The humans, you need to see this." The main screen switched to a view of Earth's orbital defense stations. What I saw made my primary heart skip a beat, and my secondary heart start racing. The humans weren't preparing for battle. They were already moving. Every ship in the human fleet, from massive carriers to civilian transport vessels, was launching. No hesitation, no diplomatic consultations, no committee meetings or focus groups or strongly worded letters of concern, just immediate unified action. "Get me Commander Chen," I barked, and within seconds Marina Chen's face appeared on my screen. She was already in her battle armor, her expression carved from stone. "Can't talk long, Ambassador," she said briskly. "We've got friends who need help." "Commander, the Nexar fleet outnumbers you 10-1. You can't possibly—" "Watch us," she interrupted with a fierce grin. "Nobody messes with our meditation buddies." The screen went dark. I turned to Trill, who was monitoring the Nexar communications. "What are they saying?" "They're laughing, sir. They're calling this taking out 2 primitive species with 1 strike. Their exact words were, 'What are they going to do, throw friendship bracelets at us?'" I felt a smile creep across my face. They really don't know, do they? The next few hours were a masterclass in why you should never, ever underestimate either the power of peace or those who choose it. The human fleet arrived in the Lumini system using jump coordinates that shouldn't have been possible. Apparently those meditation sessions had included sharing some rather advanced spatial mathematics. The Nexar commanders were still laughing when the first human ships emerged from hyperspace directly inside their formation. Their laughter stopped when they realized the humans had positioned themselves in a pattern that perfectly mirrored the Lumini's planetary defense grid. A grid that had, until now, been dismissed as decorative light arrays. "Sir," Trill's voice was barely a whisper, "the Lumina, they're glowing." The entire planet had begun to pulse with light, but not the gentle artistic displays they were known for. This was something else, something ancient, something that made my scales tingle with primordial warning signals. That's when Commander Chen's voice broadcast across all frequencies. "Hey Nexar, ever wonder why the most peaceful species in the galaxy never needed weapons? Here's your answer." The Lumini's planetary defense grid activated. Those beautiful artistic light arrays. Turns out they were also the galaxy's most sophisticated energy weapon system. The decorative orbital rings, actually ancient defensive platforms that made our most advanced shields look like paper umbrellas. But here's the real kicker. The humans knew. They'd known all along. Those pizza parties and tag games had been cover for deep strategic planning, the friendship bracelets, quantum-entangled communication devices. Even the meditation retreats had been tactical training sessions in disguise. "Trill," I said quietly, watching the Nexar fleet's formation crumble under the combined assault. "Make a note in the official record. Standard diplomatic observation protocol is hereby suspended because, quite frankly, I need a drink." She nodded numbly, still staring at the display. The human ships moved like dancers through the chaos, their maneuvers perfectly synchronized with the Lumini's energy weapons. Each blast of light was met with precisely targeted human firepower, herding the Nexar ships into killing zones with almost artistic precision. "It's beautiful," Trill murmured. "Terrifying, but beautiful." She was right. The Nexar had brought overwhelming force to intimidate what they thought were weak, peace-loving species. Instead, they found themselves facing the perfect synthesis of human adaptability and Lumini precision. Peace through strength, and strength through unity. I watched as another Nexar dreadnought disappeared in a flash of light and human weapons fire. You know what the real irony is, Trill? The Lumini really are the most peaceful species in the galaxy. The humans really do love art and poetry and games. None of this was a deception. "Sir?" They simply understood something the Nexar never could. True peace isn't about being incapable of violence. It's about being capable of it but choosing something better, until some fool forces your hand. The battle continued to unfold like a deadly ballet, and I couldn't help but think that somewhere, some Nexar admiral was having a very bad Tuesday indeed. They had wanted to crush the spirit of peace in the galaxy. Instead, they were about to learn that peace has teeth, and friends who know how to use them. If you ever want to truly appreciate the concept of irony, try watching a peace-loving species systematically dismantle the most aggressive military force in the galaxy while playing classical music. That's exactly what I was witnessing as the human Lumini counterattack entered its second phase. Is that Mozart? I asked, listening to the broadcast frequency. Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, actually, Trill corrected me. The humans suggested it. Something about making art while making war. The Nexar fleet had regrouped after their initial shock, forming a defensive sphere around their command ship. Under normal circumstances, it would have been an impenetrable formation. These were not normal circumstances. Commander Chen's voice crackled over the comm. "Ready for the next movement, High Illuminator?" "Indeed, Commander," Astra responded, their voice harmonizing perfectly with the symphony's crescendo. "Shall we show them our little dance?" Dance. They were calling this synchronized apocalypse a dance. The Lumini ships began to pulse with complex patterns of light, each one different yet perfectly coordinated. The human fleet split into smaller squadrons, their formations mirroring the light patterns. "Ambassador Vex," Blake Washington's voice joined the channel. "You might want to record this next part, for historical purposes, of course." "What exactly am I about to witness?" I asked, already queuing up the recording systems. "Remember those joint meditation sessions you thought were so amusing?" Blake chuckled. "Turns out, linking human intuition with Lumini quantum consciousness creates some interesting tactical possibilities." The Lumini ships suddenly flared with brilliant light, each pattern shifting and flowing like living art. The human ships moved in perfect synchronization, as if they could predict exactly where each burst of Lumini energy would strike. They weren't just coordinating, they were operating as a single entity. "Impossible," Trill breathed. "The processing power needed to coordinate movements that precise—" "Isn't processing power at all," I realized, watching the dance of destruction unfold. "It's empathy. The humans aren't calculating the Lumini's moves, they're feeling them." The Nexar commanders must have realized something was wrong when their supposedly superior targeting systems couldn't lock onto either human or Lumini ships. The combined fleet moved like water, flowing around enemy fire while striking from impossible angles. "Sir," Trill reported, "I'm picking up some interesting energy readings from the Lumini homeworld." Define interesting. Remember those meditation temples everyone thought were just for show? They're power generators. The entire planet is a battery, and those peaceful little light shows they've been putting on for millennia? Training exercises. I had to sit down. They've been hiding in plain sight all along. "Not hiding," Blake corrected. "Waiting. The Lumini have known for thousands of years that eventually someone would mistake their peacefulness for weakness. So they prepared. Not by building weapons, but by perfecting their control over light and energy itself." As if to demonstrate this point, the Lumini ships suddenly released a coordinated pulse of energy. In the space between moments, every quantum particle in a 1,000-kilometer radius synchronized. The human ships rode the wave like surfers, using the quantum distortion to appear simultaneously in multiple locations. The Nexar fleet's formation collapsed into chaos. Their targeting systems, confused by the quantum uncertainty of their opponents' positions, began firing at random. The humans and Lumini pressed their advantage, their synchronized attacks cutting through enemy defenses like light through crystal. The truly brilliant part, I mused, watching the battle unfold, is that none of this violates the Lumini's commitment to peace. "How do you figure that?" Trill asked. "Look at their targeting. Every shot is designed to disable, not destroy. They're not trying to kill the Nexar. They're trying to stop them from killing others. Commander Chen's voice confirmed my observation. All ships, maintain protocol, Gamma. Disable their weapons and engines only. Let's show them the strength of mercy. The Nexar command ship, its defenses finally overwhelmed, hung powerless in space. The combined human Luminae fleet surrounded it in a spiral formation that was both tactically sound and visually stunning. Even in victory, they couldn't help but make art. "Attention, Nexar Command," High Illuminator Astra's voice rang out, still somehow gentle despite the circumstances. "We offer you peace, as we always have. The choice to accept it is yours." The response came in the form of desperate energy readings from the Nexar flagship. They were preparing to overload their core rather than accept defeat. "Oh, no you don't," Commander Chen muttered. A single human ship broke formation, flying directly at the Nexar command vessel. For a moment, I thought they'd lost their minds. Then I saw what they were really doing. The human ship wasn't attacking. It was positioning itself to contain the blast, to sacrifice itself to save even their enemies. But they needn't have bothered. The Lumini ships released one final coordinated pulse, and every energy system on the Nexar command ship simply harmonized. The overload disappeared, transformed into a gentle light show that rippled across their hull. "How?" Trill started to ask. "The same way they've done everything else," I replied, finally understanding. "By choosing to master peace rather than destruction. By learning to change the nature of energy itself rather than simply unleashing it." The Nexar fleet hung disabled but largely intact in space, their mighty warships now looking almost fragile among the dancing lights of the human Lumini armada. The symphony reached its final movement as the last shots faded away. "You know what the strangest part is?" I said to no one in particular. "If they'd just asked, the Lumini would have taught them everything. All of this knowledge freely given if they'd only approached with open hands instead of raised weapons. The battle was over. The galaxy would never be the same. And somewhere in the command center of that Nexar flagship, I hoped someone was learning a very important lesson about judging books by their covers, or in this case, judging a species by their light shows." Beethoven's Ninth Symphony concluded with a flourish, and in the silence that followed, peace once again reigned among the stars. A peace now guaranteed not by force of arms, but by the combined strength of those who chose to walk a gentler path. Have you ever seen an empire fall? Not just lose a battle or surrender a system, but completely, utterly collapse? I have. I watched it happen while drinking a cup of coffee with real cream, a human delicacy I'd grown quite fond of during these interesting times. The Nexar High Command, in their infinite wisdom, decided that losing their main fleet wasn't enough of a lesson. They deployed their reserve forces, every ship, every weapon, everything they had, in one desperate push to restore their reputation. 3,000 warships, the combined might of a dozen subjugated worlds, all converging on the Lumini human defense line. They really don't learn, do they? Commander Chen sighed over the comm. She sounded more disappointed than worried, like a teacher watching a student make the same mistake for the 100th time. "Perhaps they require a more direct lesson," High Illuminator Astra suggested, their bioluminescence pulsing with what I'd learned to recognize as anticipation. I took another sip of coffee. "What are you planning?" "Watch," Blake Washington replied with that infuriating human grin of his. "Remember how the Lumini turned their whole solar system into an art installation? Yes, it's visible from 12 parsecs away, and... Oh." I nearly dropped my cup as realization dawned. That's not just art, is it? Art, science, defense system, quantum communications array, Blake listed off casually. Humans aren't the only ones who like their tools to multitask. The Nexar fleet dropped out of hyperspace in perfect attack formation. I had to admire their precision, even if their judgment was questionable. Their ships filled the void like angry wasps, weapons charged and missiles armed. That's when the Lumini turned on their art installation. Every star, every planet, every asteroid in their system began to pulse with synchronized light. The human fleet, positioned at seemingly random points throughout the system, suddenly made sense. They were the conductors for this symphony of light and energy. "Sir," Trill called out, her voice filled with awe, "the quantum readings, the entire system is becoming a single coherent light wave." The Nexar fleet fired their first volley. The weapons fire dissipated harmlessly, absorbed into the growing wave of light that was engulfing the system. Their second volley never came. Their targeting systems were being scattered by the quantum interference. "Now then," Commander Chen's voice was calm, almost gentle. "High Illuminator, shall we show them why peace is a choice, not a weakness?" "Indeed, Commander. Let us illuminate their understanding." The light wave collapsed inward, condensing into a brilliant point at the center of the Lumini system. For a moment everything was still. Then, like a supernova in reverse, it exploded outward in perfectly controlled waves. The first wave passed through the Nexar fleet harmlessly, or so it seemed, until every weapon system on every ship simultaneously powered down. The second wave followed seconds later, disrupting their shields at a quantum level. Not destroying them, just convincing them to take a break. The third wave was pure art. It rippled across the hulls of the Nexar ships in patterns of light that told the story of peace and war, of choices made and paths taken. Their ships' external cameras broadcast it all back to their homeworld, letting every citizen of the Empire see the message written in light across their mighty fleet. "Attention, Nexar Empire," High Illuminator Astra's voice carried across all frequencies, accompanied by pulsing lights that translated their words into pure emotion. "Your fleet is disabled, your weapons are silent, yet you remain unharmed. This is not mercy, it is an invitation." Commander Chen joined in. "Look around you. You're floating in a sea of light, surrounded by species you thought were beneath you. We could destroy you. Instead, we choose to show you a better way." The human fleet moved in perfect formation, each ship trailing streams of Lumini light like cosmic dancers. They weren't taking prisoners. They were putting on a show. The most elaborate, powerful, and meaningful light show in galactic history. From my observation post, I watched the Nexar Empire's might dissolve not in fire and destruction, but in understanding. Their ships hung suspended in the light, crews watching in stunned silence as their invincible armada was transformed into the galaxy's largest art exhibition. "Trill," I said quietly, "make a note in the official record. The Nexar Empire fell today not to superior firepower or military might, but to superior enlightenment, literally." She nodded, adding after a moment, "Sir, the Nexar homeworld is broadcasting. They're requesting meditation instructors." I couldn't help but laugh. Sometimes the most powerful weapon isn't a weapon at all. Sometimes it's just the ability to show others that they don't need their weapons either. The light show continued, painting the stars with the promise of a different kind of strength. The kind that comes not from the ability to destroy, but from the wisdom to create something better. 1 year later. And that's how the most peaceful species in the galaxy helped create the strongest peace in history, I concluded, addressing the newest batch of diplomatic trainees. The lecture hall of the Galactic Academy, now decorated with both Lumini light art and human finger paintings, buzzed with excitement. But Ambassador Vex, a young Nexar trainee, raised her hand. "Couldn't the Lumini have conquered the galaxy ages ago?" "Technically, yes," I smiled, remembering that day of light and revelation. "But that's what none of us understood. True power isn't about conquest, it's about choices." Through the Academy's windows, I could see the new joint human Lumini patrol fleet passing by. Their ships still looked like an impossible combination, practical human engineering wrapped in flowing lines of living light. The Nexar Empire had transformed too, their once fearsome warships now serving as mobile galleries and diplomatic venues. "In case you're wondering," I added, noticing the trainees watching the ships, "those meditation sessions are still mandatory for all military personnel. though I hear they've added pizza to the menu. Commander Chen and High Illuminator Astra had made quite a team after the war. Last I heard, they were organizing an intergalactic dance competition. The prize? Advanced quantum physics lessons disguised as choreography workshops. The galaxy's a funny place, I told my students, packing up my notes. We spent millennia building bigger weapons, stronger shields, faster ships. But in the end, it took a species that chose peace, and a species that chose friendship to show us what real strength looks like. Trill, now my co-lecturer, added with a grin, and let's not forget, they did it all while playing classical music. As my students filed out, I noticed a new light installation being set up in the courtyard. Humans and Lumini working together, creating art that doubled as a planetary defense system. Because old habits die hard, and these days even our art has teeth, just very well hidden, professionally whitened ones. Sir, Trill handed me my daily schedule. The Nexar Peace Council wants to know if you'll judge their upcoming galactic light sculpture competition. Of course, I replied, checking the time for my evening meditation class. Just remind them, no weaponizing the interpretive dance this time. Some kinds of art should stay purely decorative. At least until the next would-be conqueror needs a lesson in enlightenment.